My mother was standing in my kitchen like she owned it, leaning her hip against the counter, scrolling through her phone when she said it. "You don't need the money anyway." She didn't even look up. Just flicked her thumb, bored, casual, like she was commenting on the weather. The words landed harder than a shout ever could that I stared at the notification still glowing on my laptop screen. $10,800.47. Caribbean Cruise Line. Luxury suite package. Charged to my credit card at 6:12 a.m., while I'd been asleep in my own bed in the apartment I paid for, with a life I'd built inch by inch. "You used my card," I said slowly now she looked up. Smiled, actually. That familiar little smile that always meant I was about to be told why I was wrong for being upset. "Relax, Jessica. Don't start with that tone. My name is Jessica. I'm 32 years old. I'm a senior accountant. I audit other people's financial disasters for a living and tell them calmly exactly how they ruined themselves. I own my apartment outright. No mortgage. No co-signers. I also own a 3-bedroom house across town. An investment property I bought at 28 because I plan ahead. That house is currently occupied by my parents and my younger sister, Brittany, rent-free. For 3 years, I swallowed and turned the laptop so she could see the charge, like she somehow hadn't noticed it already. You charged $10,800 to my card without asking me." She waved a hand. "Brittany has been so stressed lately. She needed this vacation." In the doorway behind her, my father sat on one of my bar stools, slouched, one leg stretched out dramatically like he was posing for a sympathy brochure. "He's been injured for 5 years now. Long enough to stop working. Long enough to start collecting pity. Not long enough to stop mowing the lawn or carrying cases of soda when he thinks no one's watching." He didn't say anything. He never does. Silence is his favorite weapon. "And we're going too," my mother added, brightening. "We haven't had a real vacation in years." I let out a small laugh before I could stop myself. Sounded brittle, wrong. "Brittany doesn't work." "That's not fair," my mother snapped instantly. "She's going through a lot." Brittany, who was currently sprawled on my couch in leggings and an oversized hoodie, finally looked up from her phone. "Wow, Jess. Way to be supportive." "Supportive of what?" "Yes. Your boyfriend broke up with you because he suggested you get a job. That was 3 months ago." Her eyes narrowed. "You don't get it." "I do get it. I always get it. I just stopped being quiet about it." "Don't be dramatic," my mother said, her tone sharpening. "It's family. We share things. Like how I shared my house, my savings, my silence. Like how I paid the property taxes while they lived there. How I covered repairs. How I let utilities slide because Dad's disability check was delayed again. Like how every emergency somehow landed in my lap." "You didn't even ask," I said. She laughed. Actually laughed. "If I'd asked, you would have said no." There it was. The truth, naked and unapologetic. Then my hands started to tremble. Not from shock. I'd seen this coming for years, but from something settling deep in my chest. Final ugly clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't an accident. This was a decision they made, together, knowing exactly what they were doing. Brittany rolled her eyes. "You make 6 figures. You'll survive." I thought of my spreadsheets, my careful plans, the way I'd turned down trips, delayed upgrades, lived below my means so I'd never have to depend on anyone. I thought of the nights I lay awake calculating interest rates and contingency funds, believing responsibility would protect me. "You'll enjoy it," my mother said lightly, already turning away, as if the conversation was over. "You always land on your feet. Enjoy it." She didn't know what those words would mean later. None of them did. I closed my laptop. The click echoed in the kitchen, sharp and final. My mother paused, sensing something shift, but she didn't turn around. For the first time, I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't beg to be understood. Because something fundamental had broken. Not loudly, not dramatically, but cleanly, like a bone snapping under steady pressure. This wasn't the first time they'd crossed the line. It was the last time I was going to let them. Looking back, the cruise charge didn't come out of nowhere. It only felt sudden because I'd spent most of my life pretending the pattern wasn't there. I was the easy child. That was the word my mother loved most. "Jessica's always been so independent," she'd say to relatives, smiling proudly. "We never have to worry about her." What she never said out loud was the second half of that sentence. "Which is why we don't protect her." From the time I was little, responsibility was treated like a personality trait instead of a burden. I got straight A's without being asked. Packed my own lunches. I learned early that praise came when I didn't need anything. Brittany was different. Brittany was sensitive. Brittany was artistic. Brittany needed room to find herself. When I was 13, I quit the school band because the fees conflicted with Brittany's dance lessons. My mother framed it like a compliment. "You're so mature about it, Jess. You understand." At 16, my college fund, money my grandparents had started when I was born, went toward Brittany's birthday car. A used convertible she cried over with happiness. I remember standing in the driveway holding the keys out to her, smiling for photos, telling myself it didn't matter because I'd figure it out, and I did. I always did. I worked 2 jobs through university. Early mornings at a cafe, late nights tutoring accounting students who were struggling with concepts that came easily to me. Brittany enrolled in community college, dropped out after 1 semester, and declared it not her path. Whenever I felt resentment bubble up, my mother shut it down with the same sentence she'd been using my whole life. "You've always had it easy. Everything comes naturally to you. Brittany has to work twice as hard for half the results." It was genius, really. That line made my success feel like theft. Like I'd accidentally taken something that should have been shared. Taught me to feel guilty for stability. To believe that because I landed on my feet, I owed everyone else a cushion. By 27, I'd saved every spare dollar since I was 15. I bought the house as an investment. 3 bedrooms, quiet street, solid structure. Financial security. Something that was mine. They were only supposed to stay 6 months. Maybe a year. That was 3 years. My father's back was the reason. Or at least that's what they said. Too much pain to work. Not enough pain to try anything else. He went to exactly 2 doctor's appointments in 3 years. Never followed up. Never asked about physical therapy. Never looked for remote or desk work. But somehow he was healthy enough to pose on a cruise ship deck, arms spread wide, sunglasses on, grinning like a man without a care in the world. My mother quit her part-time grocery store job because it was too exhausting to work while caring for my father and Brittany. On Facebook, though, she posted photos of fancy dinners, wine glasses clinking, captions about small joys and family time, while privately telling me money was tight. Brittany contributed nothing. No rent. No groceries. No utilities. She complained constantly about needing new clothes for job interviews she never actually attended. I get texts asking for transfers. Just a little, just this once. At some point I stopped tracking the total. When I finally added it up later, it was around $40,000. Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, a water heater replacement, roof repairs after a storm, Christmas gifts the year they couldn't afford them, cash sent for Brittany's interview outfits, groceries when the fridge was mysteriously empty again. And still I was told I was lucky. The Thanksgiving that year should have been my wake-up call. I called a week before, asking what time to come over. "We can't afford the gas," my mother said. "It's a long drive." 40 minutes. That I offered to come to them instead. Said I'd bring the whole meal. Turkey, sides, dessert. Everything. There was a pause. Then she said, almost casually, "Oh, Brittany already made plans for us at that new Italian place downtown. The one with $50 entrees." I spent Thanksgiving alone, eating leftover takeout at my kitchen table, scrolling past photos of their smiling faces clinking glasses under warm lighting. The comments were full of hearts. Family goals. I remember thinking, sitting there in the quiet, that something was deeply wrong. But I still didn't say it out loud. That's the thing about systemic abuse. It doesn't announce itself. Trains you. It teaches you to explain it away, to minimize, to be grateful for crumbs. So when my hands shook in the kitchen over that cruise charge, it wasn't just about $10,000. It was the accumulated weight of every sacrifice reframed as my duty. Every boundary erased with a smile. Every time I was told I had it easy while carrying everyone else. The pattern had finally revealed itself clearly enough that I couldn't unsee it. And once you see it, you can't go back to pretending it's normal. Saturday morning, my phone buzzed while I was still in bed. I didn't even have to unlock it to know who it was from. The family group chat lit up with a photo taken on a sun-drenched ship's deck. Blue sky, endless water, champagne flutes raised mid-toast. All of them leaned together like a postcard version of happiness. The caption read, "Family vacation finally. Thanks for making dreams come true, Red Heart." Thanks, as if I'd wrapped the cruise in a bow and handed it to them willingly. As if it hadn't been taken while I slept, quietly, efficiently, the way they'd always done it. I sat up and stared at the image longer than I probably should have. Not with anger. Not even with hurt. I zoomed in on my mother was wearing a new sundress, white with bright blue flowers. I'd never seen it before. She had on sandals that looked expensive, her hair styled just a little too carefully for someone who'd been claiming poverty for months. My father stood beside her, arms braced on the railing, posture relaxed. No grimace, no stiffness. The back pain that supposedly prevented him from working had apparently taken the week off. Brittany was front and center, of course. Fresh highlights catching the sun. Skin already bronzed like she'd been planning for this moment. She looked radiant, entitled, completely at home in a life she hadn't paid for. They hadn't invited me, not as an afterthought. Not even as a joke. Did I realize then that what I felt wasn't rage. It was something quieter, sharper. Like a pane of glass sliding into place inside my chest. I had always been the provider. The stable one. The one who never complained, never demanded, never asked what I was getting in return. My family had trained me to see that as love. To feel guilty for succeeding where Brittany failed. To believe that being needed was the same thing as being valued. And suddenly, with brutal clarity, I understood that none of it had been accidental. I got out of bed, made coffee, and opened my laptop. I'd avoided this for years. Told myself it would only make me bitter. That keeping score was petty. That family wasn't a ledger. But that was another lie I'd swallowed to stay comfortable. I built a spreadsheet. Free housing, market rent for the area, multiplied by 36 months. Utilities I'd covered when the bills were late again. Emergency transfers. Gifts that were never returned, never acknowledged. Repairs, property costs. And finally, the cruise. When I totaled it all, the number sat there, unblinking. $73,000. I leaned back in my chair and stared at it. $73,000 was a healthier retirement account. It was travel I'd postponed year after year. It was security. Options. Instead, I'd subsidize their present while quietly stealing from my own future. My phone buzzed again. Another photo. This time, a restaurant table loaded with seafood. Lobster tails split open, crab legs stacked high, butter gleaming under soft lighting. Someone had clearly made sure to frame it just right. Eating like royalty tonight. Royalty'd on my dime. I thought about the overtime hours I'd need to work to recover from this. The careful recalculations I'd already started making in my head. And something in me finally hardened. Not broke. Hardened. The part of me that had always explained, always excused, always bent, calcified into something solid. Unmovable. Unbreakable. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I hadn't touched in years. Patricia. The real estate agent who'd sold me both properties. Professional. Efficient. Clear-eyed. She'd once told me, half joking, that I was one of the few clients she never worried about because I always made decisions with my head, not my heart. My finger hovered over the call button. I knew what pressing it meant. There would be no undoing it. No pretending this was just another misunderstanding to smooth over later. Images flashed through my mind in quick succession. My mother's dismissive smirk in my kitchen, my father's practiced helplessness, Brittany's effortless entitlement. I exhaled once, and I pressed calls. The phone rang. A strange calm settled over me. The kind that comes when you finally stop asking for permission to protect yourself. Whatever happened next, I wasn't going to be the silent financier of their choices anymore. Patricia didn't waste time on sympathy. She pulled up comparables, zoomed out on the map, and slid into work mode like this was any other transaction. That neighborhood is strong, she said. Good schools, low turnover. And you've maintained it well. Honestly, you've done more upkeep than most owner-occupants. She ran the numbers while I watched, the way I watch clients when they finally see the truth of their balance sheets. Conservatively, $270. More likely $285. Possibly over $300 if we let it breathe. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief, confirmation. Then she leaned back. There is one complication. The house was occupied. No lease. No rent. No paperwork. Legally, my parents and Brittany were what Ohio law calls licensees. People allowed to stay by permission, not right. That permission could be revoked, but it required notice. 30 days. Normally that would have slowed everything down. But nothing about this was normal. They were 12 days into a cruise. Unreachable. Floating in the middle of the ocean. Blissfully unaware that the world on land was moving without them. Patricia tapped her pen against the desk. I've closed deals in 7 days before. 10 is more typical for a rush. If we move now, we can close before they're back. That's when something cold ran through me. To home that night, while pulling documents from the property portal, I found a form half uploaded, not submitted, not filed, but filled out. My mother's handwriting was unmistakable. A residency declaration. An attempt, clumsy but intentional, to establish tenant rights. To make their presence permanent. To make me trapped. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. This wasn't desperation. This was planning. The last thread of doubt snapped. Patricia made calls that night. 3 buyers. All investors. All fast. One stood out. Gerald. He specializes in exactly these situations, Patricia said the next morning. Cash buyer. No contingencies. He handles occupant issues himself. The offer came in at $260. Below market. We countered at $265. He agreed without blinking. 7-day close. All cash. Gerald would take responsibility for removing occupants. Lawyers on retainer. 20 years of experience. Patricia walked me through the legal reality one more time, steady and precise. Filling out that form doesn't establish residency. It was never filed. They're licensees. If the property sells while occupied, the new owner handles removal. And Gerald knows exactly how to do that. Then she asked, gently but directly, "Is there any reason this sale shouldn't proceed?" I ran through the list in my head. Was it illegal? No. Was it immoral to stop subsidizing exploitation? No. Did I want to preserve a dysfunctional status quo that was draining my future? No. Did I want to keep being the family doormat? No. No reason at all, I said. Let's proceed. Paperwork took 2 hours. Disclosures, agreements, authorizations. Everything neat, clinical, efficient. The magnitude of it didn't slow the process at all. Before I left, Patricia looked at me and said something I didn't know I needed to hear. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen a lot of family situations, some ugly. Whatever led you here, you're not doing anything wrong. That's your property. She paused. It doesn't seem strange. Seems like someone finally decided to stop being taken advantage of. That takes more courage than most people have. 3 days later, the final documents landed in my inbox. I stared at the signature line. My phone buzzed. A video this time. My family clapping and laughing at some shipboard show. Faces glowing with a happiness I hadn't seen in years. All on my dime. Without a single thank you, I signed. The closing was scheduled for the next day at 2 p.m. I signed electronically from my work desk, minimizing my screen whenever coworkers passed. Within 48 hours, the funds hit my account. $265,000. After costs and commission, over $240. Within hours of closing, Gerald's team changed the locks. Notices went up. Formal, legal, impersonal. Property sold. 30 days to vacate. Standard procedure. They were still at sea when it happened, raising glasses, laughing, unaware that the ground beneath them, literally, had already shifted. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about it. The days between the closing and their return were the quietest I'd had in years. Nothing dramatic happened. That was the miracle that I went to work. Came home on time. I cooked meals I actually liked instead of whatever stretched farthest. I caught myself researching vacation destinations. Real ones, not the hypothetical, someday kind I used to bookmark and forget. I booked an appointment with a therapist who specialized in family dynamics. I didn't even flinch when I entered my credit card information. Saturday night, the evening before their ship docked, I did something I'd never done before. I turned my phone completely off, not silenced, not face down, powered off. The absence of it felt strange for about 10 minutes. Then my shoulders dropped. I slept through the night without waking once, without running mental drills about emergencies that weren't mine, and no anxiety about what they might need. No guilt about what I wasn't providing. No fear about money running out. Sunday morning, I woke up early and made myself a proper breakfast. Eggs Benedict from scratch. Fresh squeezed orange juice. The fancy coffee beans I'd been saving for a special occasion. This was the occasion. At 11 o'clock, I turned my phone back on. It exploded. Notifications stacked on top of each other so fast the screen lagged. Text. Missed calls. Voicemails. 25 missed calls. All from my mother. I smiled, poured another cup of coffee, and sat down. The first voicemail was from the night before. Her voice was clipped, irritated, already annoyed that reality wasn't cooperating. "Jessica, we're home and the door won't open. Did you change the locks while we were gone? What's going on? Call me back." 5 minutes later, another. "Jessica, there's some kind of notice on the door about the property being sold. This is obviously a mistake. Call me immediately." The third message was my father, sounding lost. Honey, your mother is very upset. We can't get into the house. Please call us and tell us what's happening. After that, the tone changed. By message 5, my mother was shouting. By message 8, she was crying. By message 12, her voice was cold with fury. Threats of lawyers, disownment, consequences she couldn't actually name. Brittany left 2 messages. The first was venomous. I can't believe you would do this to us. To your own family. You're a monster, Jessica. An actual monster. The second came hours later, softer, breaking on cue. I don't have anywhere to go. Where am I supposed to sleep? Don't you care about me at all? I listened to all 23 voicemails straight through. Coffee cooling in my hands. Not once did any of them apologize for stealing $10,000. Not once did they acknowledge 3 years of rent-free living. Not once did they recognize that actions have consequences. Every message was about them. Their inconvenience. Their suffering. Their victimhood. I was still the ungrateful daughter who had given them nothing around noon. The text shifted tone. My mother tried, reasonable. Long paragraphs about understanding I might be upset. Offers to pay back the vacation over time. Explanations that they hadn't meant to upset me. That they assumed I wouldn't mind given how generous I'd always been. Still no apology. Just reframing. Brittany oscillated wildly. Rage, then vulnerability, then rage again. She reminded me of all the times I'd helped her. As if generosity created permanent obligation. Accused me of jealousy. Threatened to tell everyone what I'd done, to expose me as cruel and heartless. I saved everything. Not because I needed proof, but because I needed a record. Insurance against the part of me that used to forget who they were at 2 p.m. My mother tried one last tactic, a message almost gentle in tone. She suggested we meet for coffee near my apartment. Just the 2 of us. To work through whatever was going on. She even offered to come to me. For a moment, the old reflex stirred. The trained instinct to de-escalate, to fix, to smooth things over. Then I remembered her smirk in my kitchen. The way she'd laughed when she admitted she hadn't asked because I would have said no. The casual certainty that my money, my property, my life existed for her use. I typed one message. You chose to use my credit card without permission for a luxury vacation. I chose to sell my property. Both were choices. Both have consequences. Then I blocked them. My mother. My father. Brittany. Every number. Every platform. Every email. For the first time in my adult life, my family had no way to reach me. And the silence that followed wasn't lonely. It was freedom. 3 days later, on Wednesday morning, I was working from home when the pounding started. Not knocking. Pounding. The sound traveled straight through the door and into my bones. Jessica! My mother's voice shrilled from the hallway. I know you're in there. Open this door right now. Kept typing. Finished the sentence I was on. Saved the file. This is ridiculous, she continued, voice cracking with fury and disbelief. You can't just refuse to talk to us. We're your family. My father murmured something low, the way he always did when he wanted to appear reasonable without actually intervening. Then Brittany's voice, whining, rehearsed. Jessica, please. We just want to understand. What did we do wrong? I stared at my screen and said nothing. After a few minutes, another door opened down the hall. A neighbor's voice floated out, cautious but alert, asking if everything was okay. Another joined in. My mother tried to laugh it off, explaining they were just visiting her daughter. The building has strict disturbance policies. Someone mentioned the front desk. After 20 minutes, the pounding stopped. Footsteps retreated. The elevator dinged. Silence returned. Later that afternoon, I found a folded piece of notebook paper slid under my door. My mother's handwriting was cramped and urgent, words pressed together like they were running out of space. I don't understand what's happening. We've always shared as a family. You never complained before. Is this really about money? Because I know you have plenty. You've always been the successful one, the one who didn't need help. We're the ones struggling. Your father can barely walk. Brittany has depression. I'm exhausted. We're staying at a motel because of you. Motel. Is that what you wanted? I raised you better than this. I sacrificed everything for you girls. I will never forgive you for this. Never. But I'm still your mother. If there's any chance we can work this out, call me. I read it twice. Then I filed it with the rest of the messages. Every line reinforced the same truth. manipulation, guilt, and not a trace of accountability. I didn't respond. The weeks that followed were quieter than I expected. They stayed with a distant cousin for a few weeks, someone I'd met twice in my life. Eventually, they wore out that welcome too that I kept my therapy appointments. Learned to name what I'd lived through. Financial abuse. Emotional conditioning. Not just family drama. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected because I was always busy fixing someone else's problem. I made plans that only involved my own goals. The guilt didn't vanish overnight. Some days, Brittany's voice echoed in my head, calling me a monster. But those days came less often. The peace of not being constantly needed, drained, exploited, was worth more than I'd imagined. The cruise charge stayed on my credit card. I paid it off methodically, refusing to let it destabilize me. The money from the house sale was invested and earning returns. Fitting, in a way. Their vacation was the last thing I ever paid for them. A month later, a letter arrived from a lawyer my mother had hired. It accused me of illegally evicting them and demanded $100,000 for suffering and relocation. My lawyer, recommended by Patricia, laughed softly when she read it. They have no case, no lease, no tenancy. The new owner followed procedure. This is intimidation, nothing more. No lawsuit ever came. The letters stopped. 6 months later, through the family grapevine, I heard updates. My parents were renting a small apartment in a less desirable part of town. My father had finally applied for disability benefits. Real ones with documentation. Brittany had moved in with a boyfriend she met online. It wasn't going well. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel guilt. Their circumstances were the result of their choices. I took my first real vacation alone. A week in the mountains. Hiking. Reading. Not answering my phone because no one was demanding anything. In therapy, I learned the hardest truth. I hadn't just been generous. I'd been trained to be a caretaker. To believe my value came from what I provided, not who I was. Breaking that pattern was the hardest thing I'd ever done. It was also the most necessary point. 8 months later, my mother found my work email. She wrote about getting older. About her health. About not wanting to die with a rift between us. I searched the message for accountability. For an apology. For acknowledgement. There was none. That I deleted it. She tells people I betrayed them over money. That I'm cold and selfish. That they sacrificed everything for me. That I have credit card statements. Bank records. A deed that once had my name on it. And a piece that is hard-won and precious. The house on Maple Drive belongs to a young couple now. It's been renovated. The neighborhood is still quiet. Life continues. Selling that house wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life from people who had been stealing it piece by piece for 32 years. They call it betrayal. I call it survival. And if I had to choose again, I'd make the same decision. Without hesitation, without regret.